Hi, I'm Donna Lawrence, and I'm the author of this book titled Pen Pals, a Novella, and Other Stories. I'm here to do a Q&A session for the Boulder Bookstore. So, here it goes. There's so much to this book, and I think to give you an overview, to be fair, would be to read to you some of the things that are in this book and give you a better idea of what to expect. So let's start with the novella. The novella is about two people who are on the fringes of a serendipitous encounter. AI facilitates the budding slow burn romance of these people who are trying to find fulfillment in their lives, or will fate draw them apart? We'll see. As far as the short stories, I'm going to read to you a little bit about each one and what they represent in the book. So here goes. Man's best friend gives us a peek into his life. When faced with horrendous consequences, a young girl experiences a tremendous life lesson, and college girls know the same when mysterious interventions occur on their way back to school. A vicious predator longs for freedom while living within the confines of a gated cage that feels like a prison. A young boy takes on the challenge of righting wrongs, and a young girl encounters terrifying events that change her forever. Mystery dwells in the grandest hotel in the Rocky Mountains, and a most unusual encounter occurs in the neighborhood home of a lonely woman on the cusp of discovering her strengths and courage. Evil visits a newly retired fashion model after she returns from Europe longing for a quiet life. Corporate America holds no peace for a marketing executive, nor for a young divorcee who finds terror in her loft apartment. As for a professor on sabbatical, mysteries and wonders are offered when visiting a small town in America. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I was inspired to write this book from several different aspects. Let's start with the novella. Artificial intelligence has been with us for quite a while, and for me, I wanted to explore what that would look like if it came into our lives and affected us on a personal level. So the idea of having artificial intelligence work on the fringes of bringing two people together was intriguing for me. That pretty much led me through the journey that I went on in writing that particular novella. So that was my inspiration for that. As far as the short stories are concerned, I have a lot of stories rolling through my head all the time, and I've written several. In compiling these, I wanted to bring together a theme of sorts that led back to the premise of the novella. So I've been inspired by different experiences I've had, experiences that other people have had or they've told me about, and just using my imagination to expand on some of that, to bring some intrigue, thrills, wonders, and also other ideas that make us all human and certainly highlight our frailties and the things that make us great. So that's one of the inspirations that I use for writing the short stories. So yeah. As a writer, I suppose I do keep my genre um, uppermost in my mind, but it's not the thing that drives me as far as creating a story. I think that I'm most comfortable writing in the genre of historical fiction, coming of age, particularly if it occurs in rural America. That's where my comfort lies. Um, as an author, you start out with a premise, you end up with, where your conclusion is, but it's filling in the middle. That's where the fun lies. I know that, just recently I published a book of poetry, which is kind of outside my wheelhouse, but I did it. And I'm happy with the results of that particular book. I'm also happy with the fact that my short stories certainly do lend themselves to the genre that I'm comfortable writing in. I have historical events that happen. I also have coming of age, and I have rural America depicted in some of these stories, although there are a couple of the stories that occur in the big city. I certainly stay true to what I'm comfortable in writing. So I guess, yeah, in a way, I do stay within my genre, but that's where my comfort lies. So yeah. Yeah, I may have mentioned before that I have a lot of stories that roll around in my head, and I've written a lot of short stories. Trying to decide which ones to put in this book wasn't difficult at all. I wanted to pull out stories that certainly circle back on the theme of the novella, and that is to bring mystery into these stories and explore some of the things that happen to us in life that we may or may not share with others or even want to think about long and hard with ourselves. At the end of the day, I think mysteries are to be not to be solved, but to be lived. And that's what I try to do and try to incorporate in these stories to give the reader a little bit of something that resonates with them, be it something that's thrilling, that's mysterious, something that certainly lends itself for us to think about um, in the way of forgiveness, unconditional love, us as humans and the frailties that we bring in our lives to make us better. So that's what I try to incorporate in this book, and hopefully the stories lend themselves to that. So, yeah. There is a difference in how you approach writing a novel versus a novella and short stories. With my novella, it started out as a short story and it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And I realized that I had something that was not going to lend itself well to short stories, but it wasn't large enough for a full on a story of fiction for a novel. So it ended up being a novella. As far as short stories, that's a little different. With a novel, a lot of authors start out with an outline. Others use just fly by the seat of their pants and just write what they need to and then come back in and do edits later. But for a short story, it's a little different process. You have an idea and you want to work from that. And you want to certainly get to the point a whole lot quicker than you would with a novel. So there is a difference, and I do approach it a little differently. With the short stories, I wrote, and with the premise and the conclusion very, very short. There's a very short span of where that conclusion would lead. So yeah, it is a little different when you look at the different writing styles, and it was certainly something I learned from. So yeah. A couple of books I've read that I really love. I have a few that I'd like to share with you. This one, Dreamwalker by Natalie van der Werken, is a wonderful, wonderful read. It's a series of books that she's written on the Dragon Children series. And so if you're interested in books like this that have to do with on the line of um, Game of Thrones or fantasy, anything having to do with dragons, this is the one to get. This is really very well written, and so much is in this. I mean, a lot of sword play. You've got swords that have special powers, and a young girl in this particular book, Dreamwalker, goes on this journey, and so it lends itself to me because it is kind of coming of age. So I really like this book. So check this out and the other series of books that she's written along the line of the Dragon Children's series of books. The other book that I just dearly love is this one by Elena Ferrante, My Brilliant Friend. I don't know if you can see this. Book one and book two of her series of books are ones that I've thoroughly enjoyed reading. It's about 19. It's set in 1950s and the 1960s in Italy, and has to do with the Napolitano culture in Italy. So I've read all four of her books. Book one and two, I highly recommend. So this is really a very good read. So it's one I would recommend. Another book that I purchased just for grins is this book called The Black Walrus by Joseph Caldera. Joseph is amazing. He's written, I think he may be on his third book, I'm not exactly sure, but he's written this series of books of The Black Walrus. Joseph is very funny, and his command of the use of similes is just hysterical. I bought this book for my nephew. He's going to get it for Christmas. He doesn't know it yet, but yeah, this is his. The Black Walrus by Joseph Caldera. I highly recommend this book and any of the other three that I've just shared with you. So yeah. I think there's a little bit of something for everyone in this book. Men, women, young adults. I think anyone reading this book will find something in here that will resonate with them. Although I have not marketed this book to those who are younger than 13 years of age, I still think that there's something for everyone, be it in the way of mystery, thrillers, something from the unknown, the unexpected. I think you can find it in this book. Um, I do think it's something that it would be very good to pull up with in front of the fire with a cup of coffee, tea, or whatever have you. So, particularly as we move into the winter months, I think this is a wonderful, wonderful read. So, I don't think you'll be disappointed, but that's just my take. Now I'm going to read from a short story in my book titled Ghost Dancer. So here goes. There was nothing unusual about the day. It was the same as the day before. He felt the sun's warmth as it bathed his dark black fur. He could lie there forever, languishing in the warmth, except his belly told him it was time to feed. Ghost Dancer opened one of his yellow eyes to view the tiny blades of green grass closest to his line of sight. No, nothing unusual at all about the day. He raised himself and stood on his forelegs, then shook himself from nose to tail, loosening ground debris collected in his dark, shiny coat. He moved his head from right, then left, and lifted his snout to sniff the air. The faint smell of smoke, moss on the north side of trees, wet grass, dirt surrounding mushrooms, and more assaulted his nostrils. He stretched his forelegs before him, bent his head down, and yawned long and wide. His thick tongue licked his nose as he lifted his head high. He was ready to begin. He was not the alpha. He was not the beta. He was just another member of his pack of 7. Humans would consider him a lone wolf within his pack, unsociable, unpredictable, yet content. He liked the sound of his name when he heard it move through the wind. He understood this sound and answered when the keepers of the preserve called. He understood all the name sounds such as Lily Bell, Mr. Hanks, Lovely Stella, Coco, Angry Bear, and Cochise. Cochise was their leader. They looked to him for guidance. If left to the wild, it would always be that way. Coco and Lily Bell were the pups of Cochise and Lovely Stella. Angry Bear challenged Cochise on occasion, but never won. Angry Bear wanted pups of his own. Mr. Hanks was the oldest of their pack and was revered for his length of years. Ghost Dancer could be found near him, some distance away, but always nearby. Ghost Dancer longed to be free, to roam the hills and valleys bigger than the preserve provided. The occasional shanks of venison their keepers gave were enough for a time. Still, there was nothing like hunting down prey, capturing the kill, and eating fresh meat off the bone. He wanted to feel the wind rush through his fur as he ran for miles and miles over unfamiliar terrain claimed as his own. He wanted to touch with his paws and scratch his pads on rough ground in anticipation of what might come. He wanted to feel the mist of water as it fell from waterfalls, or smell fresh water pooling in ponds or lakes full of fish or other game. To forge ahead into the unknown of what tomorrow might bring instead of the humdrum day-to-dayness of the preserve. Yes, Ghost Dancer wanted more. From Pen Pals and Other Stories. I want to take the time to thank the Boulder Bookstore for allowing me to do this Q&A session with you today and to talk about my book, Pen Pals, a Novella, and Other Stories. If you want to know more about other books I've written and learn a little bit more about me, head on over to my website, DonnaMarieLawrence.com. Thank you, and thanks again to the Boulder Bookstore.